Okay, and Senate Institutions is back. And I'm Senator Plunkett. I'm the vice chair chairing the committee today. Senator Harrison is on Zoom, although you can't see her right now. We have with us the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts. So let us hear what you know.
Hello. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today and to hear from us a little bit. My name is Corey Ross. I'm the executive director for the Windham County Natural Resources Conservation District. We're one of the 14 Vermont conservation districts. And we're just here today to talk a little bit about an overview of who the districts are and what we do, and as well as our funding request. So Vermont's conservation districts were established by the Soil Conservation Act in 1939. And there's Title 10, Chapter 31, and Chapter 33 establishes the supervisory unions, which are part of that same structure. And so in this way, conservation districts are a subdivision of state government, and we act like county scale government. Each district's governed by a board of 5 elected supervisors that hopefully provide that local input onto what those local priorities and needs are, and serve as that bridge between the local level and the state and federal level. We have been established to be the state's conservation delivery system, and it's a model that's bottom up, locally led, and a democratic approach to tackling natural resources issues. When the state decides to do things around water quality or support for farmers, they look to conservation districts to be the boots on the ground to implement a lot of that work. Is you right?
Sure. I'm going to switch in.
Sure.
Good afternoon. My name is Claire Ireland. I serve as the Director of Operations for the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts. So Corey will be able to answer a lot of questions about what things look like from a district level perspective. And I want to speak a little bit to a statewide perspective about all of our 14 conservation districts. So as Corey said, we have conservation districts have a very broad mandate to tackle natural resource concerns. And this means they have a variety of program areas. So natural resource conservation would include things like clean water work, invasive species, habitat work, but we also do more hard infrastructure, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. So things like stormwater remediation, culvert replacements, a lot of that's funded through the Clean Water Fund. We also work a lot directly with farmers and other people who manage working landscapes. So people who do timber or other types of production on the land. So we do provide technical assistance to farmers, other ag producers, as well as helping to assess those lands for natural resource concerns and come up with solutions. And then help connect those folks with funding to get those projects on the ground. So things like exclusion fencing for cows, things like manure storage solutions, things like that. And then we do just general education and outreach to the public. So it's a lot of working with local communities, working with municipalities, with different public interest groups, with schools, with just generally community members, to help people understand a little bit about their natural resource environment, as well as to gather information from the local level and then provide that feedback up to our state agency partners and to the legislature and anybody else who's interested. So
anyone can, in essence, reach out to you.
Yes.
Can be individual, can be an organization, can be government agency.
Absolutely.
And reach out depending what they're. So this is. I'm not sure if people know that, and this is very important. Because I am sure that a lot of issues can be solved if if people knew that. I personally have wondered that.
Well, that has been our longstanding challenge.
Yeah.
We were established in 1939 and have existed in the state all this whole time, and every area in Vermont is covered by a conservation district. Conservation districts serve private land ownership, public land ownership, lands that are conserved, not conserved, working landscapes, non-working landscapes. It really is a blanket coverage throughout Vermont. And we are here talking with you today, as well as in other committees, really trying to do that education about what already exists here in the state as a governmental system. And part of that is because we're hearing a lot of needs, like natural resource needs from both communities and the state level. And we want the, folks in the legislature to be aware of what structures already exist as we're getting into problem solving around these issues. Likewise, we'd like our communities to know what resources are available to them. Part of our challenge historically has been that we don't have a dedicated source of funding. And so a lot of our work has been functionally unfunded throughout the years, which we can get a little bit more into. But, when people ask, why don't I know about a conservation district? A lot of times it's because we've been severely under-resourced over the years. So
That's fair.
I am hoping to talk a little bit about our infrastructure work, given the committee we're in. And so I did allude a little bit to some clean water work we do, which I'll talk about. The top left picture here, I'll just briefly touch on. This is our rural fire protection program. We host this for the state of Vermont through the Vermont Association of Conservation Districts.
Mhm.
So this is a statewide program that helps municipalities install dry hydrants in rural communities. It really helps us extend fire protection across the state for both structural firefighting as well as the potential for wildland fires. So we run that program. It's a sort of a one-man show, but that's that the funding for that program does come through this committee, I believe. So you probably heard from Troy Dare in the past about his program.
Is he the fellow that was in not too long ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember names.
guy,
Was that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. I don't remember names, but okay, so.
So
all
that-
right.
Yes, absolutely. So Troy is employed by VACD to run this program statewide. Then in addition to that, we start getting into some of our sort of earth moving projects, things like dam removals, culvert replacements, certain types of road work, particularly around clean water. If you're having erosion issues on a road that's contributing to water pollution, that kind of project is something we can look at. Bridge replacements. What else do I have here? A lot of stormwater projects. So like stormwater systems for a municipality. We can help to design those projects. And essentially what districts do is they take projects from the very first idea stages all the way through to completion. So they act as program managers and as or project managers and project implementers. So they're working with their communities to identify projects, helping to design them, and then helping to install them. Over here, you see Corey, one of Corey's projects. This is infiltration steps. It's a project that was put in as part of the Clean Water Fund. And it's helping to reduce erosion and access points to the river. So he can tell you more about that. But to drill down into the Clean Water Fund, I do want to talk about this specifically because a lot of our funding comes from this source. About 35% on average, any given fiscal year, about 35% of district funding comes from competitive grants through the Clean Water Fund. And this funds a lot of the infrastructure work that I've just been talking about, things like the stormwater systems, the culverts, the dam removals. In addition to that, we have other types of funding under that fund. So we are statutory partners in the Tactical Basin Planning Program. And so this is a process that through the Department of Environmental Conservation to identify priority clean water needs. So we do get money for that. Districts work with their communities to help develop DEC's priorities for clean water. We also, districts get money through the enhancement grants and the formula grants, which help to fund the hard infrastructure projects. They also serve on basin water quality councils and as clean water service providers, which is another mechanism for clean water project prioritization. And then they get funding through the Clean Water Fund for agricultural work as well. So both sides, natural resources and ag. Talking about this specifically a little bit because we do have an interest in making sure that the Clean Water Fund is funded and that the specifics of the funding can be made available year over year to districts. So, we're always sort of working with the Clean Water Board to ensure that they're aware of our priorities and make sure that the budget can be tailored to the needs that we're seeing on the ground. And be responsive to things like the availability of federal funding. So that's just a brief overview of our relationship to that fund. I'm going to shift a little bit into the impact of federal funding, because this is of current concern for us. We have about $4.75 million right now that is at risk to conservation districts in a variety of ways. Of that, $3.6 million is actively frozen. And that is, it covers a couple big picture projects, which I'll talk about, but the most of that is for staffing. $2.3 million for technical assistance is currently frozen. If that goes away or if that continues to be frozen, we're going to start dropping off in our ability to provide technical assistance to landowners. So that's the risk there. For infrastructure projects, a lot of times conservation districts will leverage federal dollars to do the things like the dam removals, the culvert replacements, bridge work. You see a picture here of a federally funded project in Pulteney Meadowy. So right now we have a $1.2 million project for culvert replacement frozen in Essex County, and then $400,000 for culvert replacements frozen in Orleans. That's not the full scope of our federal grants, but those are the ones that are actively frozen, and it's due to IRA funding components. So in addition to the paused funding, we also have $400,000 that has been canceled for workforce development. And this would have been training young people in how to provide technical assistance to farmers. So that program has already been canceled, but we, because of that cancellation and a couple other cancellations that have happened in our world, we are very sensitive to the fact that our historical funding sources feel a lot less stable than they used to. So I will go back and just say a little bit more about our relationship to federal funders. One of the unique aspects about conservation districts is that they have an ability to have a presence in USDA offices and to provide technical assistance directly with the USDA. So they can sort of supplement USDA staffing and help with access to those programs. Because of this, a lot of districts have offices in USDA service centers and rely on USDA computers and other programs for their day-to-day work. This has become relevant because one of the things that has happened over the past couple of months is a potential reduction in federal office space, either through the cancellation of leases or the sale of federal buildings. So just to make this committee aware, if that happens, we would be in a position of having conservation districts without office space. And that relates potentially to a future request we may have for this committee to purchase office space on behalf of the districts. So right now, districts, are taking full advantage of opportunity of access to federal resources. We are hoping those will continue, but it's a risk for the future. So in general, districts have a couple of categories of capital needs. We have brought requests to this committee in the past for one-off funding. The needs that we have right now, one is office space, as I just mentioned. Districts have been outgrowing their federal office spaces. So in addition to the risk of closure, there's just a simple fact that we're growing and we will need more office space at some point. So we have districts that are looking to purchase office space for the first time. We also have districts that need vehicles, work trucks, as well as equipment such as tractors, UTVs, no-till drills. These are things that would help with project work on farms, as well as demonstration projects that benefit farmers. Then we have a whole category of office supplies and equipment, things like computers, printers, software, etc. Districts, the way that their budget is structured, they do not have access to direct access to any kind of state level fund or taxation authority. So even though they're units of government, the only money that we get for general operations is from our one time, a single line item in the Agency of Agriculture's budget. And that relates to our $3 million request, which we can talk about in a second, but I just want to stress that when districts have capital needs, that's really the only source of funding they can turn to outside of competitive grants. So unlike a municipality that can maybe, fund that kind of need on their own through taxes and creating funds, and unlike a state agency that would have a full budget and a state budget, districts are sort of this middle ground where that need is unfunded. And so we do end up being in a position of coming to this committee to ask for what are sometimes very relatively minor asks, coming to this committee and asking for, a truck for a district. We'd like to figure out some solutions to that in the future. But this is just sort of flagging that this is our current situation and how we relate to the capital fund. And I'm going to turn it back over to Corey to talk about our budget request.
Thanks, Beth. So districts and VACD have worked together to develop an appropriation request of $3 million in base funding. We recognize this as a substantial increase. It's a number that was developed looking at what it would cost to make sure every district had a full-time district manager. So that there's at least, regardless of how competitive grants go for a particular district, it would guarantee like a baseline level of service in every district. And those funds would be very effective for leveraging additional federal funding, because if you're, like, speaking for myself, if my position is paid for through that, then when I write grants, I can use my time as match and I can leverage additional funds. And somewhere there's a number floating around of like 9-to-1 return on investment in funds that have been appropriated to the conservation districts in the past. We recognize that that's a tough ask right now, and based on the feedback we're receiving, we're prioritizing a goal of getting to 1.25 million in this cycle. Last year our appropriation was 612,000. 612, thank you, 612,000. The governor's proposed budget cut it to 500,000. And the House has restored it to 612 in their budget. Happy to answer any questions that you have. And once again, just really appreciate the time today.
Just full disclosure, 3 of the 5 people that are on the negotiating committee are in the agriculture. We got the presentation. So, but I think I can speak for it. We really like to, but it's just it is maybe one of the most difficult years. That's redundant. What year is it? Sure. But this is especially difficult because, as you put, the federal funding is a third of our total budget, right? So, and we don't know what we're going to get. So we're flying a little bit blind right now, but we understand the ask, and I'll speak for myself on this. I mean, it is good work and work that's needed. So.
So typically when you're in a capital budget, you've been in the capital budget before? Couple, 3 years ago?
I thought we received one-time funds. We received one-time funds of $100,000.
It was a capital improvement project or something, or can you
Yes,
remember?
Yes, so that money was to help fund the purchase of an office building for Holding Meadowy District,
Mhm.
as well as some district trucks and some associated needs that went along with either the trucks or the building. So like things like office furniture.
Yeah. Okay.
Were you able to stop sharing? Because I think Chair Harrison wanted to say something. I can't put it down.
Yes,
Yeah.
great. Thank you. And thank you for this presentation. It's really, really helpful. And honestly, I only found out about the conservation districts when I became a senator. I think, Corey, you are the one who told me about them, but you do great work. And this is helpful to know. I just do have some questions. I didn't know you actually did culverts. Do you do those? Because obviously everywhere is a town or a gore. So do you coordinate with the towns when you do the culverts?
Yes.
Similar things?
Districts are really good at partnering with all the different components of a project. We work a lot with towns, we work with conservation commissions, we work with RPCs as well as landowners.
So are there certain towns that you can work with? Are you restricted, like the more urban ones you can't work with, or do you have a
No,
limit?
we're not restricted in that way.
Okay, okay. Have y'all looked at possibly trying to have a office in county buildings? Because I know some of our county buildings aren't used as fully as they could be.
No, that's an interesting idea.
Since you're a county entity or county type entity.
Right.
And then another suggestion I would have is just BGS. They have we've learned this year about the space book that they have, where they have vacant, not to say that it'd be free, but there are buildings that are not being used completely.
Okay.
That are state, so that might be something to look at. So what's the total budget? Because you said 35% of your funding comes from competitive grants through clean water. What 35% is what dollar amount? I mean, just roughly.
Claire,
Just
she would
trying
know
to get
better than me.
a bigger idea of how large the organization is.
I will need to look up a specific number, but it's in the ballpark of 2 to 3 million
Okay, for all of the districts together?
combined, yes.
Okay, and then what was it? Oh, and then did you say that you help folks establish stormwater utilities?
We can do stormwater projects, yes.
Stormwater projects, but not utilities. So it's not, we aren't advising on like how a municipality would set up and manage a utility. But if they have a stormwater utility and they're looking to do a project, we often provide expertise, but usually that's more to a lot of that goes to some of the smaller towns that don't have a stormwater utility because they don't have the capacity for that kind of administration. And so they often need the expertise of the districts for some of those things, like figuring out what the right size of a culvert might be.
Yes.
For stream.
And that's really valuable expertise. And in the committee just behind the wall behind you, they're talking about how to help small towns establish stormwater utilities.
Okay.
So I don't know if you all are part of that conversation, but you could be if you want to be. What else? And it's great that 3 of the folks on this committee are in ag because they know more than I do. I guess that's most of my I guess one other thing. Do you have a list of engineering firms who you recommend for stormwater for these projects?
Generally, like most government, we don't have the capacity to sort of recommend a particular person. We would be more inclined to like, these are the firms that do this kind of work, because that kind of endorsement gets into like a tricky area. But you might say, you could talk to this community about what their experience was, but for us to be endorsing a particular firm would kind of get ethically tricky. It would be like state of Vermont did it,
So I understand. And I wouldn't want you to recommend someone, but maybe offline you can just tell me, because you work with engineering firms, right?
Yeah, I think we can share who we work with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be helpful because they would have good expertise as we go through the utility process too. All right. Well, I'm sorry you're having these issues like everyone with the federal government. It's a shame that they're coming down, especially on rural communities. So, but thank you. I mean, your work is wonderful.
Thank you.
And we'll do what we can.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, right now, 14 districts. How many people are working for each district? You think it's 2 employees in that? Right.
That sounds right.
One in Bennett.
One. Just my
One is then sort of like a part-time person.
Okay.
1.5.
We have 4 full-time people in the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's variable. A couple of districts have.
It is variable. So our smallest district has about a half-time employee,
Yeah.
and our largest district, it depending depending on the time of year, we'll have as many as 10 employees.
Yeah.
Some of those are seasonal, some of those are part-time. So
Chittenden,
I'm sorry.
what that?
So our larger districts are Franklin County, Pulteney Meadoway, and White River. The district that serves Chittenden County is our Winooski district. I believe right now they have 4 employees. So our budget request is aimed at getting at least 1 full-time employee per district. We believe that's the minimum. On top of that, we would be interested in supporting districts based on the relative size and need. Our smallest district is Grand Isle, and that's a very small district. Our largest covers both Chittenden and Washington County. So there's a range of needs there. And so, yeah, so right now our request is really just aimed at getting the baseline system up and staffed fully, so that we can then, on top of that, build more programmatic solutions to some of the problems that those communities are facing. So,
And as you're mentioning, this is the capital project committee. Are there specific capital projects that you guys would ask to be funded by this committee if we could? You
We
have
should talk about irrigation.
Sure. So in Wyndham County, we manage the water chestnut removal, which is an invasive species on the Connecticut River. We receive grant and aid funding through the Aquatic Nuisance Control Program, which is the DEC run program. And that pays for our staff time, but it doesn't pay for any of the materials we need to do work with our eligible expenses. And we need canoes and kayaks to get out on the water. We need a boat trailer, and we will need a truck or some sort of vehicle to pull a boat trailer. So those are some substantial expenses.
Does it make sense for us to ask for, you send us a list of anything that could fit into a capital project? I'm asking you, Senator Harrison, should we ask for a list of possible capital projects?
Sure. I mean, it's probably good for you to just have those anyway. But you did so your ask, the 612, that's in the big bill budget, not our budget, correct? Okay.
Right.
so
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're happy to provide a list of all of the capital needs. We do have a running idea of what districts need and can pull that together for the committee, as well as some rough estimates on the cost for some of those. Some of those costs are going to be a little bit unknown right now because we don't have bids for like office space and things like that. And since you provided some potential alternate avenues to look into for that, but we can definitely provide information to the committee. Generally about what districts need.
That might be helpful because we might need a landing page if we were able to find some monies that could be
Absolutely.
in the capital bill. It needs to be something that could be bonded for 20 years. I mean, that is the capital bill's premise of what it is. It's gonna be a building. They don't like vehicles. I can warn you about that, but something that's going to be a capital construction project that has a 20-year lifespan. So if you have other landing pages, that would be helpful for you. If we were able to secure some dollars, it might help the chair and us be able to figure out to make the case for you.
Well, we can develop that, and I think there are some other specific projects that we can incorporate in that information to the committees. For example, I know that Bennington has a sort of a community farm that they're running in association with a veterans program, and so you might be familiar with this program.
We are, and we're also familiar with the veterans facility.
Yep.
So that's helpful for us very much because we are already appropriating through the capital bill some dollars into that facility. So yeah.
Well, we can develop that list for the committee.
Be great.
Right. And actually, with
Up to you.
We're happy to do that.
the veterans hospital or home, you could propose some capital portion of that farm that that would probably, and I can't tell you that you're going to get the money, but if you if there's a capital component of the farm, that would be good to know now and possibly in future years too.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
We all,
Okay. And in the meantime, it's great to learn more about the organization.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Folks again.